We just watched Invincible Season 4, Episode 5, and wow, that was a lot. We're going to talk about it here in this video, so we are going to spoil the events of that episode. We're not going to spoil stuff in the future, because I don't know stuff in the future, because I haven't read all of the comics, but I want to talk about it, because so much interesting stuff happened in this episode. I do think it's kind of funny. This episode is called Give Us a Moment, and I don't know if this is true of all of the great Invincible episodes, but I do think there's something funny to how mundane some of the titles of some of the episodes are, like We Need to Talk, or It's Been a While. Those end up being like really big episodes, so it almost feels like the more mundane the title is, the more exciting the episode is going to be. So this is the episode following Herm, the somewhat controversial episode that was set in Hell, and a lot of people knew, and especially the way Herm ends with Alan and Nolan showing up. People knew what to expect here. I don't know how quickly people thought certain things would happen, but like I think this is going to go down as like one of the big Invincible moments. And it gave everybody everything they could want. And that's not all just fight scenes, by the way. There was a lot going on in this episode. I will say the most important thing, obviously, we saw Alan's cat. Shows pictures of his cat to people, which is how you know he's a hero and can be trusted. I got my cat Mortimer on my lap right now, and he loved it. I show pictures of him to everyone. And it's too. I show him too many pictures, but I can't help it. He's adorable. So this episode starts with this great confrontation between Mark and Nolan. I love that this is the second time Mark has met him post betrayal, post like the reveal. And the first time I feel like he was confused. They didn't really know how to handle this. But this Mark, he feels like an adult. Like he knows how he feels about this. He knows what Nolan deserves. And on the other hand, I like that Nolan does feel like he is trying to be better. I guess what I liked about Nolan is like he's a bad guy, but the problem with Nolan originally seemed to be a problem of scope, right? He didn't think human lives mattered, which, you know, they do, but he's an alien, right? So I guess like for people, it's like a bug. If you kill a bug, you don't feel like you're taking a life, right? But then if you had to live with the bugs, you fell in love with the bugs, and you learned that like they are a civilization or whatever, now that A, what you care about is different, but B, like understanding that this world is more complicated than you thought. Like someone like Nolan, who is like a good soldier for the Viltrumites and is carrying out their mission. Like, I like his explanation. I'm like, listen, it was wrong, but that's just what I was trying to do. And I didn't understand humanity, but now I do. And I feel bad about it. And I'm going to try to make things right. Like, and I think everybody's reactions are right, which is like, you can't. It's just, you did too much bad stuff. You exploded all those people on that train and killed all the Guardians and everybody that we liked. But yeah, I thought the Mark and Nolan conversation, great. Also, let's talk about Nolan's new outfit. It's weird that he has the dogs out, right? The feet, that you just feet are out and flopping around. I think it makes sense, I guess, because why put on shoes? It doesn't matter. What's he gonna do? Step on a Lego? Like, who cares? He's a Viltrumite. And it might be handy to have the feet so you can grip onto something extra good. I don't know. It's a weird look. We see it a couple times this episode. I want to say it's distracting, but I'm sure there's some people on the internet that are excited about it. Good for them. And then the other thing I love about the episode, it doesn't wait. It's just like, all right, talk to Mark. Now he's going to talk to Debbie. One of the things that this episode reminded me, speaking of Nolan, is just how good J.K. Simmons is on this show. Obviously, he's a great voice actor, and like he's always been very good at that. Ever since he was at Peanut M&M. But like, it's not necessarily, oh, the show doesn't work without him. But when he comes back, it's like, oh yeah, this is good. And then his scene with Sandra, oh, incredible. And like, that was something that's interesting. I didn't think about how much time has passed. They haven't spoken to each other at all, right? Mark got to talk to Nolan, and they didn't fix everything, but like, he got that moment. And nobody else on Earth has. Nobody else on Earth necessarily needs it as much as Debbie. So it's a very cathartic moment. And I kind of figured this is how this would go. She just goes for it, like completely reads him. And on the other hand, Nolan, and this is part of why you're kind of like, oh, maybe he feels like genuinely feels bad about this. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't try to make excuses or anything. He's just like, this is what happened. And, you know, you feel bad for both, obviously, in that situation. Worse for her. But you know, if he is somebody that's trying to fix himself and trying to right the wrongs, like that's going to be the one that is not going to work. Like that is the one that really matters to him besides his kids. And he'll probably never fix it. And forcing him to see that and deal with that is interesting. And it's like cathartic for us, the audience, and for Debbie. You know, we have the adorable dinner with Paul and Debbie, Oliver, Mark, and Eve. Less Eve in this episode than I expected, especially since like she didn't tell Mark that she's pregnant, which like makes sense. It's in character, and like, you know, she says like everything's so important. What could be more important than that? I hope Mark survives this episode and survives this whole thing. But I'm surprised they didn't ask Eve to go. Like, they didn't ask Oliver to go because he's a kid. And there aren't too many members of the Guardians that could really stand up to a Viltrumite. So, like, you wouldn't want to throw them out there. But, like, Eve has fought Conquest before. And obviously, like, it's not working now, and that's probably why. But we didn't even see him ask. The guy would definitely be like, oh, you fought Conquest. Yes, please. You have to come. We need you so badly. Then we got our big introduction of this episode, which is Tech Jacket. So Tech Jacket is the Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes of this universe. They were talking about him before. I think we probably saw Tech Jacket during the big fights against all of the Marks last season. But like I said last week, we kind of heard there were rumors that Tech Jacket was going to be a woman. Turns out her name is Zoe here. She's played by Zoe Dutch. And then the deal with Tech Jacket is she is a kid as well, who likes being a superhero and has a suit that makes this kind of easy for her, at least during the fight that we see on Earth. You know, has a supportive dad, played by Bobby Moynihan, and has a little AI, played by LeVar Burton. I could have sworn, the first time I heard it, I was like, that's Demi Adejuyige, but then you looked it up and it's like, no, it's that LeVar Burton. And LeVar Burton makes sense, obviously, because he's like Star Trek, and this is kind of a Star Trek-y episode. But yeah, I like the introduction to Tech Jacket. I like how quickly they joined the team, and because they weren't a woman before. In the comics, they're a guy. And not to say that, you know, Oliver couldn't be gay. I don't know. I mean, I know nothing about how this usually plays out in the comics. I am pretty sure that this is new in the show. People are like, ooh, are Oliver and Tech Jacket gonna, like, have a thing? That's fun. And I agree, that is fun. I did not expect that, even though I did kind of expect her to be young, because she's kind of supposed to be like a peer of like Jaime Reyes and those Teen Titans characters. But yeah, we get a lot of Tech Jacket here. Tech Jacket is cool. Nolan has a conversation with Art that I think is really interesting. I've been told this is not in the book, which makes sense. Always cool with more art, because that's Mark Hamill. But it's really interesting considering how Nolan and Debbie, how that conversation went, right? Like, she didn't give him any daylight. She was just telling him all the things she wanted to tell him. Clearly had a lot of emotions. And you don't figure everybody's going to have those same emotions, but you figure everyone's going to have emotions. It's going to be like a big deal. So I'm kind of surprised that Nolan goes to Art like, hey, let's have some beers and talk, as opposed to like apologizing and then saying, like, can we have a beer or two? Like, I'll explain everything. I don't know. But I loved the end of that conversation where Nolan leaves and Art's like, oh my God, he almost killed me. Could have totally ripped my head off if he wanted. Because that is how you'd think of a lot of these people. Not just Nolan either. Some of the more vulnerable superheroes. I feel like interacting with them, if you're Art, you probably get used to it, because it's like, oh, well, you know, I make all their suits. They like me. We're friends. But on the other hand, be like, maybe one of them might snap and kill me, though. And all they really have to do is, like, sneeze in my direction and I explode. So these are all really, really tense interactions. But if I make it seem like it's a tense interaction, that'll make it more likely to be a tense interaction. So I need to hide that. You know, again, really like Paul. I think he's a great character. It's so funny that he is the Paul, like, second boyfriend or second husband, I guess, that people love. Whereas the Paul in Spider-Man, who is the Paul that everyone hates, like, it just goes to show you can do it. There is something about Paul Rabin, the Spider-Man Paul, that people just hate. And maybe it's because it's Spider-Man. We know he's supposed to be likable, but I also think the introduction to Invincible Paul, whereas the introduction to Spider-Man Paul is somewhat confrontational. Yeah, it just goes to show, you see Paul and you're like, man, these comic book nerds cannot deal with change at all. Like, it's like you have to be with your one person or you have to be miserable. And it's like, not necessarily. You can totally move on. You just got to figure it out. It has to work. Then we get some time for character building on the ship. Love that. I love that Mark is firm on just like not letting Nolan in. But on the other hand, it's like Oliver needs you, trying to mend that relationship. You know, we get a little bit more of the weird Star Trek crew. And then things get crazy. Now, I was expecting all of the Star Trek characters and Telia, played by Tatiana Maslany, to just die. Like, I had a feeling the way this would go is like the ship's going to get intercepted at some point by some Viltrumites. Part of me thought what was going to happen is just Conquest is going to show up, right? So I did just think he would see them blow up the ship. Everybody that can't survive that dies, and then he fights them all. Instead, you get the whole ship exploding, the Star Trek crew survives, and then some Viltrumites show up to fight all the heroes. Now, these fights are brutal, all for different reasons. The worst feeling I had is when the fight started and Oliver went in for the body shots on Conquest, and it seemed to be working. If a scene like that starts, and Oliver goes in, tries to punch, doesn't work, I don't think Oliver's in as much danger as if it seems like things are kind of going well, and then Oliver just gets absolutely destroyed. Luckily, he doesn't get killed in that moment, but like, man, that is a trope that I was just not excited for. I do like the idea, though, that he is fast, and maybe that's going to be the lane he's in, because he's got like bug DNA or something. He's like a little bit, like he's a little speedier. So he can't cause as much damage, but he can cause a lot of damage quickly. I don't know. I'm sure the power scalers know what the difference between him and Mark is. And like if they do, because of their different genetics, like have different traits that make them special. I will say two things that stood out to me in the space fight. One, I was really worried about Tech Jacket. When the Viltrumite got his hands on her and then just smushed the headpiece a little bit, I was like, oh, this character's gonna die right now. Like, if they can do that to the Tech Jacket machine, they can definitely do it a little more and kill him. But then I remembered it does heal itself, so then they were fine. It is interesting how they are the one that's different. Everybody else is exactly the same. They all punch, but this one shoots laser beams, and I like that. I like that there's a little bit of variety. The other thing I thought was fun, I liked that there were more good guys than bad guys, and they were being smart about, like, you help with this guy, and then go help him with that guy, and we will be able to beat them. Like, if it wasn't for the guys with guns, they would have won. But yeah, then you just get everybody fighting everybody, and it's great. It's really, really awesome fight scene in space, and I do think part of the problem with space is just nothing to hit people into. It's a lot of grabbing them and headbutting them, grabbing them and punching them. So I was very glad that one of the fights ended back on a planet. And I said this last week, and like I think we've talked about this a little bit in some of these videos, is that Invincible doesn't have unlimited budget. There's a weird graphic going around on the internet, by the way, about how much Invincible costs versus how much like Jujutsu Kaisen costs, and it's like, why is Invincible not as good? And I just don't know. I don't know where anybody got those numbers. It seems like they're just fully made up. But I will say the thing with Invincible, besides the really, really good voice talent, is that they know where to use the money. They know, like, if it's two people sitting and talking in a room and the vocal performances are what's going to sell it, you don't have to over animate it. You save that for this big Conquest versus Mark fight, you know, because it is incredible. It feels very Dragon Ball Z. Like, the visual of Conquest showing up behind Oliver and then getting ready to kill him was amazing. I loved how quick the Viltrumites were moving. Like, they were too fast for the camera. I love when something's too fast for the camera. Jeffrey Dean Morgan's voice in this episode is incredible. I also love Conquest's face throughout the fight. We're focusing on it a lot because it's what Mark is choking out, and it's how we're gonna know, like, if he's doing badly. But I just love the look on his face when he shows up behind Oliver. He's always got this big giant smile on. His eyes are really wide. Like, he's just a lot of fun. And then we get like the most, I think, I don't know what could beat that up until this point in the show. What must be the most brutal visual of obviously Mark trying to choke out. And you know what else I love? I love that Mark comes in with a plan and executes it. I was like, I'm gonna choke him, and then he just keeps doing that until he's done. It makes me feel like these characters have thought about this, which is something that in these shows sometimes it's like, Jesus, did you not have a plan for how you're gonna kill him? And these guys did. For a second I was like, why didn't they use that sonic weapon that Cecil had? And then I'm like, because they're in space. Duh. I don't know why they didn't use those poison darts that they found in space, but maybe they're saving them for later. Maybe you don't want to use all your best weapons at once, but also, like, if this goes bad and everybody dies, it doesn't really matter how many weapons you save for later. But yeah, then Conquest does his fancy disemboweling move. This is like a Viltrumite finisher number one. I'm sure you get taught in Viltrumite school, is the chop through the body. All right, I just looked it up. It's a minute and a half. You get a full minute and a half from when Conquest stabs Mark to when Mark's intestines all fall out and then everybody's done. Like when Mark flops over and Conquest is dead, a minute and a half. And I think the sound design in this episode was great. That's part of these big fights that I don't think gets enough attention, is those really quick quiet moments followed by huge explosions. But also, it's just Mark making mouth sounds and then the sound of intestines falling out of him, which is like a squishy, gloppy sound. And first of all, a lot of intestines in Mark. I'm not showing it here, obviously, because it would get me demonetized. But at a certain point, I was thinking, this is like a magician pulling scarves out of his sleeve, and it's like, oh, he's got a special thing with extra scarves. But, like, I guess Viltrumites are 95% intestines. And then the family gets there, and Mark is very much dead. I mean, he's not dead. He probably isn't dead. I think it would be amazing if he was dead, because that's the kind of thing that would be incredibly shocking on this show. I guess you could still do it, right? Kill Mark here, and then let Oliver be invincible now, and then the show is called Invincible. It's not called Mark. Also, we have an invincible baby coming, so he can be invincible. I'm sure they'll heal him or something. Like, Viltrumites do heal pretty well. It does take a while, though, right? Like, I feel like it's gonna be a little bit before Mark can help and fight, which is gonna be important, because we see at the very end of the episode, Thaddeus, I think is his character's name, played by Peter Cullen, saying, we're going to go to war against the Viltrumites. And the Coalition of Planets, it's these guys, right? It's Alan, Mark, Nolan, Oliver, Tech Jacket, I guess. Phantom Rider, he seems like he's part of this now. That'll be staying even fine. And then we got Thaddeus, who's also a Viltrumite. But I wonder, like, is there anything else that the Coalition of Planets has that is going to make this a war versus, like, a big street fight that is over when the 10 people kill the other 10 people or something? And they brought up the goddamn traitor again. There's a traitor and we have to do war really quick. It better be that captain guy because it'd be really funny, and that's the one that Scott Aukerman is, who I think is very funny in general. But, like, I think that character being a secret spy for the Viltrumites would be great. But if it's not him, I don't know who it can be. Maybe Telia, but it doesn't seem like, based on everything that she's done so far that's helpful, that she is sabotaging everything. Because if she was, she has a lot of opportunities to kill all of them that she is not taking. Although it's like, the ship just kind of explodes out of nowhere. Like, we didn't get to that, but, like, the ship does not get attacked. It just has a meltdown and then explodes. So it does seem like somebody inside the ship did it. Maybe it is the captain, and that'd be great. It'd be funny for him to explain his deception and, like, I was working for them the whole time. And then someone just comes in, cuts his head off, and they're like, that guy sucked. And then moves on. It could be a good mini boss for Telia to fight if she needs something to do during the big Viltrumite war. And then we find out what happened to Tech Jacket and Alan, which is they hid. You can use Tech Jacket to make like a bubble, and they're hiding out on the ship together. Sure, good strategy, I guess. Zoe is taking this whole thing very well. Like, she's really hanging in there, considering she almost got killed, and now she's going to pretty much get killed if they go back to the planet where you would assume they're going to go. And that's it. That's the end of the episode. And yeah, brutal. Like, one of the worst. And in terms of goodness, it was good, but it was also, part of its goodness was how disgusting it was and how visceral the fighting was. And this is the kind of thing you can really only get if you build up to this by, like, having a fight Conquest. And, you know, we've seen so much of these characters that it really does feel like for the next 3 episodes, we got 6, 7, and 8 coming up, they're just going to be this fight, which I cannot wait to see. It's going to be very interesting. And yeah, I feel bad for everybody who said, oh, I'm never going to watch Invincible again after last week because they don't get to enjoy this wonderful episode, even though the Hell episode was good, don't get me wrong. And speaking of Hell, that reminds me of a video I watched recently by Lindsay Ellis called Do Matt Stone and Trey Parker Still Deserve a Very Special Place in Hell? It's about the legacy of South Park, and Invincible is an interesting one because it is about politics, but, like, it does not get explicitly political to the point where I don't think we know who the president is in the Invincible verse. I'm not sure if that has been, like, explained. I believe that's not something that's brought up in the books, but I don't think that's been made clear or, like, alluded to in the show, where South Park was going for these really quick hot takes, and a lot of them were the right take because it was obvious, but sometimes they got it wrong, and they had to, much like Nolan, you know, atone and, like, look back and say, like, we made a mistake. And this video is Lindsay, who, like, seems like was a big fan of South Park and, like, did like it, looking back and going, did they adequately learn from their mistakes, and, like, how have they chosen to move forward? It's a very interesting video. And you can find that video along with all of my videos early and ad-free on this video sponsor, Nebula. Nebula is, say it with me, a subscription streaming service that I and a bunch of other really cool people helped create. Nebula has evolved so much over the last 7 years. Sure, you can still watch all my videos early and ad-free. You can watch videos by a bunch of other creators you probably already love. But one of the most exciting things about Nebula is our original programming. Tom Scott has a new series called England, where he goes to every English county to find something interesting. You should check out this first episode where Tom Scott goes to Leicestershire and he visits a bell making factory. You see the entire process, learn how bells are made, and it is not how you would expect, especially since this bell making factory is hundreds of years old and they're still working with some of the same techniques from a century ago. Tom Scott even gets to use a sledgehammer to break one of the bells a little, because shockingly, it's hard to do. It's hard to use a sledgehammer to break an enormous bell. And each episode of England is going to be on Nebula for a week before it goes anywhere else. On top of that, we got a series that I love watching called Abolish Everything, where someone, maybe a comedian, maybe another YouTuber, makes an argument for something that should be abolished. They state their case, they make a very funny PowerPoint, the political establishment gets to weigh in, and then the audience decides what deserves to actually be abolished. This week they did the championship for the 2nd season. They had a ton of really funny people on it. I've never been on that show, maybe sometime in the future. I think I'd be a fun abolitionist. And then later this year, although hopefully not too much later, Nebula's first original dramatic scripted series, Subliminal, comes out with the episode that I wrote, which I cannot wait for you guys to watch. Nebula is the best way to support all of the creators you already love and all the creators you don't know you're going to love, but then you're going to love them when you see them on Nebula. You can also download the videos to your phone, which saves you data when you're not at home. And there are not AI videos on Nebula, so this isn't going to be like YouTube where you go on and you watch a video in a minute or two and you're like, something's off here, and then you realize, like, oh, this video is AI. which happens on YouTube and other platforms way more than I would like to admit. Nebula, we all got real stuff made by real creators, and that's why it's great. And a year of Nebula is already a steal at $60 a year, $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get a year of Nebula for just $30. That is $2.50 a month. It is an amazing deal. Again, go to go.nebula.tv/NandoVMovies to check it out. We'll be back with more Invincible stuff next week. That's all I got. Stay safe. See you next time.